Hey, I'm Weekend Gabe, and you're checking out Weekend at Gabe's, and thanks for checking out this latest episode. While you're here, also follow us on these social medias at Weekend Gabe, at Weekend at Gabe's, and also at The Real Sam Crane. Thanks for checking us out. Joining us now as part of our wonderful series titled Meet Gabe, this is going to be a wonderful, wonderful segment with Gabriel Piemonte, who joins us now on this Tuesday evening. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. How are you doing?
I am good. I appreciate you joining us. Always fun to have another Gabe jump on the show. This is our we try to do this as often as we can. We don't have a set date when we do it, but whenever we can drag another Gabe into the show, it's always fun times.
Absolutely. I mean, are there out there that you into one of these?
You are our third. You are our third victim. So that's that. And then we had Gabe from B96, and then we had Gabe Nee, who writes who's a coffee critic and expert on all things coffee.
Right. To talk his interview. Yeah.
The one I shared with you, right? So he was on. So we've done a few of these. These are really fun.
Awesome.
I really wanted to go the extra effort and find people with my last name and really double down, but that's really hard.
That's a lot. What you need for that is one of those things where you can find people's phone number and address and stuff online, like Intellius or whatever. People finder, and you'll be calling them. They'll be out in who knows where, Hawaii, and you'll be like, "Look, you got to be on my show, Mr. Mendoza." Gabe Mendoza, 105 years old, on the show next week.
Yeah, I think that that's totally possible. I don't know, like I wanted to reach out to a guy who's I guess he runs a series of what do you call that, car washes, and
nice.
So we're gonna try to find him out and see if that works out. I don't know, but I mean, maybe he doesn't think we're awesome though, so I don't know.
Gabe, I mean,
I don't know.
You're a force to be reckoned with.
Listen, I love the love, but I am also very modest, so I'm gonna just stop right there.
Nice. Okay, I'll leave it alone.
All right. So let's get into you a little bit. Let's learn a little bit about who you are. I was just scanning the website. You have a lot of work. You've been doing a ton. You recently ran for alderman in the 5th Ward a couple years back.
Yep.
You help a lot of people try to get into elected offices. You are I don't know, like you're part of the Italian American Heritage Society of Chicago, Save the Shrine, Woodlawn you're involved in. You do a lot of writings on reparations. I have questions about that, especially with the Tulsa massacre celebrating the 100th anniversary. I want to hear your thoughts about that. There's a lot that you do. How would you, in the elevator pitch, explain what and who you are?
Who is this guy?
Yeah.
Well, so exactly. to make money, I do some communication consulting. And that's how you get me working for politicians. I'm a writing coach, so that's where that stuff. I'm a editor, so that's where that stuff comes into play. My regular time, I really am into developing like small local institutions and supporting people trying to make things better for themselves. That's kind of my thing. So that's where reparations comes into play. I've lived on the south side of Chicago for over 20 years, and when you live on the south side and you try to do work here, you know that there's just not enough resources. A lot of times, smart people, a lot of energy, really trying to make things happen, and there's just no money here to get the stuff, to have the stuff happen, or nobody can really afford to like lend you a storefront that's in good shape with and other stuff. Like there are all kinds of elements where we need investment in our communities, and in my opinion, the first communities that need it are descendants of slavery in America. So that's where that comes from. But the pitch is, you just try to help your neighbors out. You try to do stuff in your community, in your neighborhood, to make things better. So I take it from that basics level to well, what can we do to fix the bigger problem? So, like, you see that there are economic problems, and so you can do something to help somebody out right now, but you could also create a financial institution that helps people to get access to money that's not like got super high interest rates like the payday loan people, or that just will deny you like banks. And so I was involved in a group that opened a credit union.
I was about to say, yep.
Yeah, the Save the Shrine thing is there was a church in the neighborhood caught on fire. It was in really bad shape, former Catholic church. The archdiocese was going to tear it down, and we were like, if you've been through Woodlawn, we have so many vacant lots, and we've lost so many landmarks that we started by saying, do not tear this down, and so we against that. But then we went further once we got the archdiocese off, and we said we're going to invest money in this. So we were able to raise over $1 million to put in the church. And so to me, that's the thing. Like, it's easy to just sit and watch what's going on in the world and say that stinks, but to get involved and try to make things better, to me, is kind of like exciting. I think that's like, what I'm into.
Yeah.
So
well, what inspired you? Because you mentioned growing up or living on the South Side for 20 years and being around. Obviously, you can pick any community in the South Side, and there is a lack of resources and support to help uplift those communities. What made you drive to be a voice and the activist to help support those communities?
Well, I think so. I started, 22 years ago. I got a job in Hyde Park, working for the local newspaper, the Hyde Park in Rogers Park. And I thought, I'll commute. Lasted about 4 or 5 months. I tried driving. There's just no way you can get from Rogers Park to Hyde in the morning. It just takes forever. So I said, forget it. I'll just move down there. And I moved, and I fell in love with not only Hyde Park, but just the whole South Side, all of the kind of communities and the culture and just everything. While I was in Hyde Park, I saw a lot of things going on, but I was a reporter, and there's kind of a rule that you don't get involved because you're covering this stuff. You don't then do something. It's kind of like you could get involved. Yeah. So for like 10 years, I'm in different ways involved in journalism. I'm living in Hyde Park. And then I moved to Woodlawn, and it was like, I'm not in the same neighborhood. I can start to get involved in stuff. And so I started I first started getting involved in gardening, kind of real simple. Like, I like to grow stuff. When I was a kid, my grandparents grew in their backyard. My dad had a garden, and, I helped him with his garden. So this was, it's kind of a nice thing to do. You can't get involved a little in these communities without realizing kind of all the, so you start getting involved in gardening, and you see disparities in health outcomes, and that there's such a need for jobs that you try to create job opportunities. So we built a community garden, kind of an economic development piece, which didn't exactly work out, but it taught me a lot about, what the needs were, but also what my passions were. And I started to it just goes from one thing to the next. As you're involved in something like community gardening, you're connecting with a whole lot of people. So you learn about a whole lot of things that are going on. And it's just it's easier to me to get involved than not. It's surprising to me when people say like, well, I do something, but I don't know what to do. I'm like, step out your front door. It's all out there. If you are, if you have a mind and a heart to, listen and connect with people and see if we to kind of help people out.
Yeah. Well, what is it about reparations that is really motivating you and pushing forward? I know you have a number of pieces writing explicitly on reparations. Well, what is it about that just lights a fire under you?
So, like I said before, you look at like a immediate problem, like some people need some money, some people need some jobs, and then it's easy for your mind to kind of get to, well, why is that, and what can we do to do something about that? On one level, you can do something like start a credit union, and that does make a difference. You open accounts there for people who get loans that they wouldn't have gotten loans otherwise elsewhere, but you're still not at that level where you're addressing kind of the big question, which is, why are things the way they are? And in my experience, having read a lot, having talked to a lot of people, having been involved in a lot of organizing efforts, I believe it's economic. I believe that the problems we have in this country have a lot to do with some people having access to a whole bunch of capital and other people not having access to it. And so you've got to kind of, you have to set that right in order for other things to start to work and to make sense. And so what I believe that history shows us is that where all this extra wealth came from, that some people have, is from enslaved citizens being forced to work for hundreds of years without pay. And so that creates wealth, but they don't have access to any of it. That wealth goes somewhere else. And so we have all this wealth in this country that's been built up. And so with reparations, the basic idea is money is owed for work that it has been done, and it has to be paid back. And so figuring out how much has to be paid back or what you're going to do, that's a whole nother kind of conversation. But that's where it comes for me, because my mind is always wondering, what's the ultimate source of the problem? Why do we, not just give $5 to this guy, but why doesn't this guy have a job? Why don't we have enough employment in this neighborhood, in this city? And eventually you get to, certain people have more than they ever will need. They have an excess of resources. Other people don't have access. And it seems like there's a hit. So that's how I ended up really getting involved and committed to this idea that we need reparations for the whole country to function properly.
Yeah. As I was teasing at the beginning of the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa massacre is today. There's a lot of stories surrounding that, and how the victims of that incident, the families, have never received justice or any form of reparations for the millions of dollars that were lost when businesses and homes, everything went into flames. What is your feeling about that incident and that story in America's past?
It's an incredible story. I think that I was talking to somebody today who said, we really do have to give credit where credit's due. Pop culture, we complain about it a lot, but the Tulsa massacre has really become a thing in pop culture. You see it in movies and in TV shows, to where people who don't know much about this kind of American history know about this. And that's really important, because that allows us to start to talk about it, to say this really happened, this was really the impact. It's heartbreaking that these people have not been compensated. People who were witnesses to that event, victims of that event, alive today, which is astonishing but true. 100 years old, 102 years old. It's incredible. Unfortunately, the real story is that this is a series of incredibly violent, racially motivated attacks that happened in America, you could say, for years. But really specifically, there's a period of time in the 19 teens through the 1920s where there's just really intense racial animosity breaking into these acts of extreme violence. And in Chicago, we have the race riot of 1919 that's a part of this continuum. So this is not something happening in the deep South or far away from us, but all over the country. In that same summer, there were these eruptions of violence. Here, it started allegedly because some kids were in the lake and they crossed this invisible line where if you were white, you weren't supposed to cross invisible. And so you just imagine what kind of crazy level of racism was happening then. Obviously, these people have to be made whole. Reparations have to be made to the people of this community. There are so many other communities that's true of, and there are so many other ways to this day where people are attacked by our system, whether it's lethal police violence when you weren't guilty of anything, or the kinds of violence that's done when you have lead pipes that your children drink out of every day and it's doing irreparable damage to them, or lead paint on the walls and nothing's been done about that. And so all of that is where, when we start to talk about a large-scale solution, you have to think about reparative justice. And that's where reparations comes from, the idea that we have to repair on a very large scale in order to really correct these problems that have existed. As you say, this is a very good example, and we're looking at the 100th anniversary. but there are so many other examples of the terrible violence that has the outcomes we see to this very day.
Yeah. Well, to segue a little bit, so part of the Meet Gabe segment is people talking about their name and growing up with it. So I wanted to ask you, what was, were you the only Gabe or Gabriel in your school? Were there others? Did you guys have to fight for who was the superior Gabe? What was that growing up with Gabriel as your name?
In my school, I was the only Gabe, so that was good. I'm actually named after my grandfather. So in my family tradition that went back a long time of the archangels. So Gabriel, Raphael, and Michael, and the men would be named kind of in cycles. So my poor dad, he ended up, would have been Raphael Antonio Piemonte, but because we came to America, so he got, in my opinion, you should have a segment on Ralph somewhere to give them a little credit, because that's kind of a rough name too. I did pretty good with Gabe. So my grandfather was Gabriel, so I was Gabe, or I was little Gabe. So his friends would have nicknames for me and stuff. But in high school, there were other things to get beat up over. The name wasn't the we had other things going on.
Yeah, we've heard people talk about how there was either competing Gabes, or like me, people made fun of the name by implying that I was gay, and then we had someone else saying that they also were going through that point of Gabe, and then also some of the challenges are whenever you go to a carnival or anywhere and you're trying to find your nameplate, Gabe is always omitted and never included.
Very frustrating, right? It's injustice. Now, speaking of reparations, I remember watching the other interview you had that, there's some talk that you might be trying to create a protected class of Gabes so we can get some justice. And that's a good example. The other terrible thing that happens to me that I'm traumatized by and I need a settlement for is people want to use the female version of our name when they address me. So it's Gabrielle, and I'm like, from where? Where did you get that from? And then the other thing is when they're emailing you or sending you a text or something, and all of a sudden there's an extra L and E at the end. Yep. And I'm like, who put that there? If you email me, you literally have to type my name in correctly first, and then come down here and make me a lady. Now, what is that about? Like, that's not right.
Yeah.
So we go through a lot, and yet we seem to be a pretty happy bunch of guys, which is good.
Yeah, I've had many of encounters with people through email exchanges where, dear Miss Mendoza.
Yeah. Where does it come from? It's not that hard.
I always make a point to respond with whatever it is they're asking for, and then just put like Gabe. It's like, so But one of
your manly friend.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I went through as a kid was people arguing about the spelling of my name. Like they would say, Gabe was spelled G-A-B. They would just drop the E. Yes. And I'm like, no, there's an E in there. They're like, no. So they would argue with me.
I don't know your name. Do you ever get the R right after the A? G-A-R-B-R? I don't understand that. Yeah. Every once in a while, I still get the G-A-B, and I've given up, to tell you. I'm older and wiser. I pick my battles now. And so when somebody G-A-B's me, I'm like, Gab isn't terrific for a nickname. I'm still fighting the Gabrielles. That's where my battle is, trying to stop that heinous activity from taking place. So keep your Gab. I'll deal with you later.
Yeah. I always loved, and I mentioned this before, I always love the way that Spanish women say my name. It's phenomenal. It is the best thing. Italian women, how would you, and your best also, Italian woman?
Fantastic. Also fantastic. Gabriele, it's musical, in a way that we don't get that here in on Michigan Avenue, you're not going to get that.
No.
But yeah, Gabriele Piemonte, it's a different. It's almost like you're like, here I am. Is that wow? That's my name. Very nice. Very nice.
No, there's a specialty to it,
I think you should consider a segment in Weekend Gabes with Gabes, where where you have a woman, either Spanish or Italian, who just says our name for, maybe 10 seconds. It'd be very nice.
We could definitely look into doing that. I would not be upset at that idea. Not at all.
I think Gabes would appreciate it.
Gabe Piemonte joins us here on Weekend at Gabe's. Tell people where they can find you, and if they're looking for help trying to run for elected office, how can they to join them?
Yeah. So I'm at GabrielPiemonte.com, and then I'm the president of, if you happen to be an Italian, Gabe, of ItalianHeritageChicago.org is the Italian American Heritage Society of Chicago. And we'll take as many Gabes as are willing to sign up. All Gabes are considered honorary. So you're an automatic.
Fantastic. Does it come with a free T-shirt or something? I mean,
we're working on the T-shirts. We got the logo. The T-shirt's still in the works.
This show does not turn down free attire, so let's just
noted there. Duly noted.
Gabe, I appreciate you joining us here on Weekend at Gabe's to share about yourself and have a little bit of fun with Meet Gabe. We appreciate your time.
Sure. Thanks for all you do, Gabe. Appreciate you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right, Gabriel Piemonte joining us here on Weekend at Gabe's. That's going to be our time tonight. We're going to have Return to Friday Funnies on Friday night, so stick around for that. Same time, same bat channel, 8 o'clock. And Sam hopefully will be back joining us back in the producer role. So enjoy your Tuesday evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll do it again on Friday right here on Weekend Gabe's. Hey, I'm Weekend Gabe. Thanks for checking out this latest episode of Weekend at Gabe's. Click on any of the links swirling around my head and also hit the subscribe button while you're here. Thanks for checking out us here on YouTube.